Okay. Greetings, family. Welcome to another episode from Ikhambi Natural Healing. Thank you so much for joining us for another session where we'll always just aim to have discussions, open discussions about everything healing, African spirituality, and being able to share different healers with you guys. So thank you so much for joining. Today, our topic is astrology and numerology. Basically, getting to understand how to decode your DNA. And today we'll have a very incredible guest that I'm really excited to have chats about. Her name is Tabisa from KY Astro, and I will hand it over to her. So basically, my first question is just, please can you introduce yourself and the work that you do?
Hello, Sissy, and hello to your viewers. I'm Tabisa. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and someone's daughter, obviously. So the work that I do is astrology and numerology. And that's just basically it's the work that I do is to be able to produce and provide people with the report, like your birth charts, in terms of what the makeup of the person, their strengths, when people are looking for answers to know whether they want to further their careers, those that already have started, for those that need to know what to do next when they leave school, to be able to provide guidance in terms of knowing their strengths so that they can know even their life after school, that is the career life, where they are strong in, because some people now have gotten to understand that that information is readily available when people do their birth charts. And also, because there's a part of it that's very spiritual, because for one to be able to understand, or rather to be able to want to know what's in their future, there needs to be some kind of finding some truths within them. So there's a bit of it that's partly spiritual from any walks of life. That's it for now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for just explaining a little bit more. So how did you come about to do this work? It's not what we commonly see for Black people, African people.
Yes. So I have, like most of us African people, we all were forced and dragged to go into Christianity as a religion. And so I have been on that journey for a couple of years, for a couple of decades. I won't reveal my age by saying how many decades. But there was a time in my life when I needed more answers when I was there, because there seemed to be a time when one applied the principles that were within the religion I was in, that I would not be able to find those answers, and the formula did not seem to work. And so one started wanting more, and there was a big question behind that: if these things that some of them I have, or I should say we have been practicing in our lives, but those seem to be questioned, or they did not come out in the same way that would have worked before. So questions started burning, and I couldn't find answers to. I mean, we go to whether it's priests or other fellow Christians and colleagues and friends, but those could not be answered. And so people, one started to really dig, because I felt that there was something beyond what we are living with, and there are just some truths. And then more questions started happening in terms of, listen, man, what is with this world that we are living in? There's more to it. There must be more. And so one started looking, and things in my life started really not going well, and there were more questions to be asked. And so there was a time that I then consulted with our people, our traditional healers, looking for answers, because there was something happening in, just besides me asking, but there was really something happening in the spirit world which I couldn't connect or understand. And so I started seeing a sangoma or sangomas. And funny enough, in the same year, I was then told that I needed to start with the sangoma initiation, because that's the reason why my things are not working well, because my ancestors are angry with me. And so I think I didn't even waste time. It just took a month for me to decide. And hopefully, I was so hopeful that it would solve the problems. Obviously, I was not given time frames, how long that would take. And so I started the journey. I then started going for initiation. And that was one of those where you have to stay at someone's house for that schooling. And so the journey started, and just things were still not being answered after a couple of months, staying at the same place and learning different things which I wasn't really privy to in my life. When I'm saying my life, yes, in my earlier life, before I joined Christianity, or I decided to just leave everything else, which was African, when I was young, rather. So in my senior life, I was not connected. I didn't even understand how these things work. Sadly, as an African, but that was what I was faced with. I was faced with a lot of, it was a completely new territory for me. Anyway, so I started on that journey of Isangoma initiation. And so while I was there, something very interesting, because I kept saying to my teacher, or to my, what do you call them? To my Kobela, thank you. I kept saying, listen, man, I know that I know that there is something out there, and I need someone that will have a better understanding, additional to the ancestral life, or a spiritual life. I feel that there's something more. And so just before then, in the previous year, sorry to just backtrack a bit, in the previous year, I also saw a medium, because obviously of searching for what is actually happening, because there seems to be a lot that I didn't understand that was happening. It's just additional to the fact that I had things missing, my ring would go missing, a couple of things, but it was surely showing that there was something not right. And like it even felt that there was something even unseen that was taking all these things. So really the questions started growing much, much faster. And so, so the Sangoma world, I call it recalled by my ancestors, because I believe nothing is a coincidence and nothing is a mistake. Can I just take a sip to that? Thank you.
Yes, you can.
And so while I was there, I then had to rush home. There was an urgent need for me to go back home. And so I went home without finishing the course of initiation. And that was it. And then, so the things that happened after that, it was clearly that I needed to leave, and it was according to my ancestors' guides. Because I believe all throughout, as we are born, from the time we are born, we all would understand that we are assigned spirit guides. And so they will guide us along the way through life, through career life, through a lot of different things. So I think me leaving there, it was them recalling me and trying to aligning me to what I needed to pay attention to, which was my spiritual gift. I also need to say this, just it's not going to take long. I also need to say this, as I was there, obviously I would have learned the skills of reading bones, so we would call it. And one of the things that I've discovered while I was there, because I already started being competent in the ability to learn to read bones. And so I've noticed a trend which was very unusual for me, and I started commenting and kind of complaint, but it was more like a comment to my Gobela, to say that why is it almost everyone that's here? I mean, there was a young lady as well who had consulted, and it seemed that she had a calling, like they would call it in Gesintu, is that umhlophe, so she needs to attend to ancestral things. And a couple of weeks down the line, she then referred a friend, and the same thing came up with this friend. And I'm like, no, man. And a third friend came, and they all seem to have the same. I said, no, this can't be right. And so I want to just explain this part, is to say that because I've started, I can't say I was a professional in it, but I've sort of I was competent in reading the bones. So, but what I want to explain with this whole narration is that on the bones, if you go, if I want to say that if you go to a sangoma, having this kind of gift, because it is a gift, having this kind of gift, they will then, according to the bones, it shows that you have an ancestral spiritual gift. It does not then go into astrology and whatever. So they would ask you to join the school because that's what the bones are showing. And so I don't blame them. But we also need to understand that things have shifted a bit. Like you will all understand that things have shifted. We are now being called because according to Cosmos, the environment has changed, is on the process actually as we are moving from 3D, 4D, and 5D. And so we need to understand that some of the people would have left behind, and they need to understand that it's not everyone that is called to ancestral schooling or ancestral sangoma training and work. So, but that's the long and short of it, is that that's how I came to do this work. And that was my journey that led me to astrology, because even there, most of the questions were not being answered. And luckily, because I was recalled, I had time to then look within me through meditation, through dreams, through whatever. I mean, I don't make my own dreams, but it's things that I was then showed and directed to be able to look into them. And so one of the things that happened, I met a lady who then I helped with an issue that she had. It was a problem, very small problem, but it can be big. We had a problem breathing. And so because I helped her with the breathing exercise, and you would understand that I've learned that from meditation, and because of my other small, it's like I'm explaining my whole history here, but it's what has happened to me that led me to learn how to breathe properly. We are all breathing. I don't want to say not properly, but there is a special way that we are taught how to breathe properly so that we are able to distribute oxygen properly, and so that our meditation is being, we are able to be effective in meditation. And so this woman was battling to breathe, and it was during COVID time, which was last year. And then because I had helped her with that, so she sort of picked up that I am gifted in this way. So she said that she'd provide me with some information. And that's then my journey in learning more has then just escalated from that time.
No. Thank you so much for that breakdown. It's always so beautiful to understand the full story of somebody. And I really appreciate you sharing such personal information about yourself. And I like that what you are highlighting is that we all come with a calling. That's why we're all on earth. But it's about identifying what you are specifically called for and not just going with the ones that we all know. And I even like how you even broke it down and said, solely when you go, like Izangoma that have told you, you have a calling you need to do. Because when you see a gift, the gift you can't say, oh, you're actually going to have a gift of words. Like you can speak to somebody and your words become healing, or
Yes.
you are going to be a writer and your words when you write. There's so many different things about healing. And I think the only thing we see is just like Ubungo side, we don't see the other side. So thank you for breaking it down to us and actually even making people that are confused, because sometimes you feel now, and I do feel that I'm different to other children, but I'm not led to Ubungoma. But then where am I led then, And that's what I think people struggle with and end up doing the other thing, because it's like, at least here, there's a structure and something that can make sense. So having people like you to say, would explore other ways, like you've spoken about meditation, which is like such a taboo thing. So maybe I think that's what I'll ask you about, is that what are the origins of astrology and the ownership of astrology in meditation?
All right. If you look at the Western, they will say it's Alan Leo, but there's life before he lived. And so it's traced back to Kemet/Egypt. Kemet, that's people that would understand that dates back to a long time before all religions, and so that is where it all began. And yeah, I think I've said both, because some people will know it from Alan because he's known as the father of astrology, and would tend to disagree with that because of obvious reasons, is that there was a life before then, and our ancestors knew about these things, they practiced these things, and so I would say it came from Kemet. Those that know a life before Kemet can then advise differently.
No, thank you so much for that. So basically, when you think about astrology, numerology, you'll also be adding meditation, since that's what you practice and are versed in. Most people are not familiar with it because it just feels so foreign. So from your perspective, is all of this a science or is it an art? And why?
Again, from Western side, it's difficult for them to say it's science, even though it taps a lot on the relation between the planets, the impact or the effects of the relationship between the planet and ourselves, and everything in the environment, including the plants and the whatever, but they don't want to acknowledge and accept that it's a science. And so we regard it as art.
Okay. All right. And then what is, so basically, just so that our viewers know, oh yes, before I get to that, actually, please tell us what KY Astro means.
KY Astro is just knowing yourself. It's also a name that was given by my ancestors while I was sleeping. And so that's what KY stands for, know yourself. And Astro stands for astrology. I just couldn't say astrology and numerology, that seemed a bit long. So I just said astrology because it does encompass a numerology within it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And just to get to that, when we speak about astrology, we luckily now a lot of people are starting to talk about my Geminis are like this and like that. But I always feel as though that is when you know your sun sign, yes, it's good, but there's more to it. So can you maybe explain to us what is a birth chart? What does it tell you about yourself, and how can one go about accessing that information?
Okay. The birth chart, basically, it will, it's a report about oneself from the time of birth. It takes a lot into consideration. It takes the day you were born. That would be based on the, like you are born on the 3rd of March, 1986 or 1996. That's basically, it will then calculate your life path, which then says that when your life path, it just says, it tells us more about your life force. What are the things that drive you, that kind of stuff. And then it will also show something about your soul urges, and that's basically your heart's desires. That is then taken from, from then your name and surname. That's why it's important, even if you are married, when you request your birth chart, to always refer to the time that you were given when you were born. We're also going to talk more about what happens when a person is born, according to astrology and according to astrology and numerology. Because the reason why it's important, the part that I want to talk about later, or just after this question, is to address the DNA part, because remember, that's what we wanted to speak about in terms of decoding the DNA. So the soul urge is then, it then takes all the vowels from the names that you were given at birth. Then we're able to know what are your heart's desires. And then it also shows something around your expression reading that's now taken on your complete name, whether you had 2, 3 names and your surname, that then takes into account all of that information. And just the detail or more interesting information on that birth chart, it will be things like your what are your strengths? If you're born on this day, what are your strengths? Like if someone is said to be a Pisces, we'll take Jesus as an example, because we know it's one of the people that we can't really miss according to the books that he comes from. So let's take someone that's a Pisces, that's born around end of March, beginning of April. So So sorry. So the end of March, beginning of April. So it will show us your strengths. It will show us your compatibility in terms of if people want to know, because you do get stars where people's character traits are so difficult to be able to interact with people, and they will be having a struggle through their lives trying to understand why is this so, and so that will be able to tell them better what are the other people that are compatible, even to be able to understand the people that you live or work around, so that you can better be able to interact with them. So that is that. And then there's also people looking for partners in love. So that compatibility will also be able to help them to know which star signs to look for when they're looking for compatible partners for lifelong journey. And they also, sometimes, like I did mention earlier, there will also be kids from schools, which I hope that in our school system, they'll be able to introduce, this is the time that it's needed now in the career guidance. This kind of information is needed, and I think it's very useful. When people need to sort of decipher what kind of career they need to go into, it helps them to know, obviously, their strengths so that they can know. But that report also, there's a part where you can actually have an idea because of how you were made. It will give you an idea what type of career fields that you can go into. It's like a Scorpio, because of their investigative traits, they can go into investigative journalism or journalism. They can be lawyers, they can be, FBIs, all of this stuff that's investigative. Scorpios can do that kind of work very easily because it comes natural in them. So it helps because now you're not going to force yourself into accounting when you are made in a way to, like they always say, you don't have to work hard, you have to work smart. In that way, you are able to get into a career that works easy for you because you've got the innate strengths and you've got the innate talent to be able to do that kind of work. And so I've mentioned the career guidance, I've mentioned the compatibility, the people looking for life partners. It's that kind of information that you can actually get from there. So it's careers, life partners, your marriage life, all that kind of stuff. So to be able to better manage your relationships, that is why people would want to get such a report, because all of that information is there.
No, thank you for that breakdown. I mean, when I started my journey with reading my birth chart, I think what I would suggest for everybody that's watching is that if you're interested in this type of stuff, astrology, understanding star signs and so on, it's very good to have an astrologer navigate with you the first time you get your birth chart done, because they're able to give you a deeper explanation, like things of your first house means that's yourself. So that's how you show up. And that's where your rising sign would be. So then that also there can be a lot of planets within that, because you might find somebody that has like Saturn in the first house. They will look older than what they actually are in real life, simply because Saturn is that disciplinarian, that hardness. And therefore, if someone has that in the first house, that's how they come across, very strict, very stern. They'll look like, if they're 20, they'll look maybe 35 because they've got that seasoned look. So that's all what an astrologer can help you understand, about yourself. And I mean, I loved when even Sister Tabisa spoke about career. You'll find your MC, you'll find what's in your sixth house. These things are so important, but you need someone to help you navigate, because as they help you navigate, then you also start reading more. And there's so much, the conversation just deepens. I mean, when I was chatting to her a few days ago, we were already talking about something else, like, hey, North Node, South Node. So it becomes a very rich experience that you have, but you must start the process by getting an astrologer to help you navigate that, like that section of it.
Can I just say something with regards to, we always say that the Saturns are old souls. I'm trying to explain what you're trying to say. It won't be a look on the outside, more about their, I want to say demeanor. They seem to be the people that they are seasoned, they are more matured. So they tend to come across as that kind of people that I'm like talking to a 23-year-old, but it's like I'm talking to a 35-year-old, because that's how they have been wired. I think we're going to talk later. I just don't want to disrupt your questions.
Okay, no, but thank you for breaking that down. You see, so those are all the really great stuff that you can find out. So basically, in terms of your work, do you think that Christians and Sangomas can use and observe astrology in their work?
Yes. Astrology, honestly speaking, on a very serious note, like I did say that I wanted us to talk about DNA. I think this is when I need to actually start before I answer that question. But let me just answer it quickly. Yes, Sangomas and Christians, this astrology is not for a specific religious people or spiritual people. Like I did say when I explained a bit earlier, because when we are born, I will just want to explain this a little bit. Okay, let me explain the Christianity part and the Sangoma part. I think partly some of the principles from astrology are being observed. Like you'd understand that there are specific times that in the Sangoma that they regard as important because of the significance of the time and because of when the sun rises, or which direction the sun rises, which direction the sun it dawns. So you notice that if you want your things to open up and to lighten up, then they will say that do things in the sunrise, because then that's when the sun comes out and that's when then your things will start opening up. And as a Sangoma, whether you are in training or your life after, you need to wake up a bit earlier, because you'll notice that during 5 and 6 and 7, or during 4 and 3 and 6, for example, that your ancestors speak to you. So it is something that has been studied and they understand this so well. In the Christian realm, I mean, this is just one part that I had to explain about the Sangomas, but it applies to everyone. There's no color, there is no religion that doesn't observe, because unfortunately, we cannot run. Even if you are under a cave or mountain, the rays and the frequencies of the impact of these planets will come to get you. So we have to observe and we have to work with them. And the Christians, Hashem, I think because I was there for a while as well, I understand that astrology, they call it horoscopes, is very demonized. And up until this day, there are people that are practicing astrology that are of Christian background. You'll notice that they even pray to God or Jesus before they do their readings, because they've gotten to understand something, that astrology doesn't sit outside of our religion. Whether at church, they don't talk about it, but they understand so much truth in the astrology that they cannot live outside of their world, because it's part of healing, to be honest. Because once you get to know all these things, you get to understand that it's actually not demonic. So some of the people, they even get angry at the fact that they only get to know this truth when they are 40, whatever, or much older in their lives, because this is something that should have been incorporated earlier in our lives. I don't know why the religion chooses, or Christian religion, because I understand the Indians, they do incorporate this in their religion, and Muslims, because you'll notice that when they go on their Eid or whatever, they do watch the moon, and they won't have their Eid without the moon, whatever, the placements. So I think mostly it's Christian that I do know Christianity, that it has been demonized a lot, which is so unfortunate. And I'm hoping that in this time and era that we are in, because the universe is forcing its way for things to change, that even this topic, which is a very vital part of our lives, that it will be introduced in churches. So will it be introduced in schools? This is just my wish. I think it's most of us' wishes, because we had to learn this outside of the environment, because it was not there in the current systems. For what reason? We don't know. But we thank God and we thank our spirit guides that they've opened up this time, and the portal that's available for us, or for it to be known as it is, in terms of the truth that it does provide and the healing that it provides. Let me go to the DNA.
Yes, I was about to say, That is so true. I think definitely, I mean, I've learned a lot about myself in terms of looking at my birth chart and starting to just follow the moon patterns and cycles and what is for me and not for me. But how does one start now? There's so much information out there. How does one now start decoding and unraveling their own DNA and their own gifts within them?
Yes. So let me go back to the DNA and the charts. So when each person is born, as much as yes, there was a spirit guides that's allocated to each person. But what also happens then is that there's a almost like someone very similar to what happens to some animals when they put a stamp on them. So that time, according to the placements of the planets, let's say your sun sign is a Virgo. So now you know if you are a Virgo, you are a native. When they say you are a native or resident of Mercury, it means that you've got a relationship with that planet, whether you like it or not. And so the sun sign could be in Mercury, but there is something that you'll understand from the birth charts that they also call the ascending sign. You'll discover that that is also part of who you are, or because even if you get 100 Virgos, but they won't be identical.
Mm.
And there is something about that. Even if you are twins, they will not be, according to the DNA, they will not be identical. And that is based solely on the fact of the placements, because you'll understand that in a day, you'll find out that each hour there's a specific planet that is at play in our lives in an hour. You'll find that in a day or every day, there's also a day, like you'd know that on Monday, moon is running the Mondays. You'd know that Mercury is Wednesday, or something like that. But you'll understand that the planets are playing a role a lot in our lives. So we cannot work outside of that. And so when you are born, the stem that's placed on you has got a lot to do with the placements of the planets at the time. So even if you are born on the same day, a couple of seconds later, there's a change on those planetary movements. So that's why you can't completely be identical. Hence, it's important for one to get that report and be able to know how to work with it. So the DNA then is what has been engraved in your how do I call it, in your cells, if we have to go, because we are talking about now DNA, which is what people know in biology or science. It's that deonucleic acid. It's exactly what your composition of your cells, and that thing that's inside there that drives your whole self. Your whole development through life is controlled by what is inserted there, and that is controlled by, because remember, the time is a number. The day, according to birth date, is also a number. So there's also numerology that's also configured there. So there's planets, which we're talking about astrology. There's also numerology, which is the times and the whatever, which is now numerology. So those things are all configured within yourself. So then those things control your life. That's why they are called, they drive your life. That's your life path. You've got a life path. That's a number 7. Now we need to understand what is a number 7. What vibration does a number 7 bring to you? So those are the things that astrology and numerology together, they work to be able to bring this person or this wholesomeness of a person. And those are the things that we need to decode within the DNA through these reports that we're able to find that information.
Okay. All right. So basically, decoding your DNA actually just means starting to find out all of these things and how they can potentially affect you and what you need to do to better manage it.
Yes, it is that. Okay. And so I think just to be, I cannot, I think I'll be unfair not to mention this part. I think there'll be people asking about, yeah, we've heard about karma. What is this thing about karma? Yes, that also is a topic that we cannot leave out, and it's a topic to be addressed. because it does come with negative effects when it's a debt, karma debt or debt karma. And if you have accumulated, I mean, there's also, you'd understand that people do reincarnate. Tabisa was here in my previous life, and you'll find out that in that life, I would have accumulated karma, which unfortunately I'll have to deal with it now in this current life. So those are the things that one needs to know that goes with all of this to be able to live a fulfilled life, because those are the things that we have to work through. How late it is in your life, you still have to work through them to be able to have a better fulfilling life. And so what did I want to say about karma move? Yeah, so, but that's also something that we just need to say as a side note or a side topic, is that there are those things that, because people will ask, everything of mine seems to align. Like I've got the big right numbers, I've got the number 9 in my birth chart. Why does things in my life path and my soul and expression, but why do things not seem to work out? Those are the things that creep in that needs to be sorted. And that's why it's also part of our health to know these things, because they do interrupt. Just like you'd go to a sangoma, you'll be under treatment, but you won't understand why things are still going wrong, because there's still underlying things that need to be sorted.
No, definitely. And it's always like layers. I think we've been conditioned in society that you do one thing and therefore everything is sorted out, and you're healed. But it's a continuous going like another level deeper, interrogating yourself, because there's also family, as you have your own DNA, but you have some shared family DNA. So sometimes when things get triggered, you are triggering that, because you have the potential of it in your body. Yeah.
That's exactly the thing. Yes.
So just to share with everybody, I'm very intentional about the energy of each day, down to the planetary hours. So even when I plan my meetings, I make sure that I plan my meetings on the days that are most conducive for communication, to better. So I love Wednesdays and Fridays. So Wednesday is ruled by Mercury, which is the planet of communication. So I love that day because things just flow and people understand each other better. Friday I love because it's ruled by Venus and she's about love. So people are softer on a Friday. That's why it's always like nice. You see people after work go out and they go chill. It's because they are tapping into that luxury, being light. Like Venus is very much about light and it's just in there and plus I'm a Libra sun and rising. So Fridays are my day. Fridays are my days.
Yes. I think that's a smart way of actually using, because now you're actually talking about how can you use astrology for your own daily life. And that's exactly how we use it. Because it's meant to make our lives easier. And that's what they talk about when they say you will work smarter. I'll always refer to that, because sometimes we hear these people using these terms and we don't even know what they say and we take and run with them. But I've gotten to understand what some of these things mean. Is that's exactly what you're saying. And luckily, Mercury is also my planet. So, so Wednesdays are for communication because it's ruled by Mercury. And so you get, like we said, Monday, you also get your Monday, which is ruled by the moon. So if you want to do circle work, and so because it also applies when you do need to do special ceremonies, or if you call them spells or you call them rituals, all of these things, they are very similar. And it's so you also choose that kind of stuff. And you also know that if you wanted to plan your traveling, then you cannot travel when it's or rather you must expect delays or mishaps when you want to do those during Mercury retrograde. So those are the things that you get to learn when you are in the space, because they also help you navigate through things. And when even when you said the meeting will be today, I also needed to check what's happening in my horizon in terms of, having a forecast of what's happening and know which day and this is going to be. And that's exactly how we use it. And you'll be surprised. I need to say this. You'll be surprised to find out, which is something that I've also discovered between last year and this year, is that the South African Parliament, I've noticed that they're using the solar, they're using new moon days, times when when they need to do their sonar meetings. So you see how people can use astrology, and it's not a boogie thing. It's not there's nothing satanic about it. You just want to be held by the universe to stamp, because they're initiating certain things on sonar or around sonar. So they want things to go easy and good for them, exactly how you've explained it. So this is how you can use astrology, and so can you use the numbers. If you wanted to plan your birth, if your chart of your child, you also can use astrology, because I also had a time in my life when I had to, my second son, I had a choice of having him the next year or having the previous year, because it's a December baby. So I had to juggle around that, because I was trying to plan for schooling. I was also trying to plan which one is going to work better for him. If it's this sign, the sun sign, which one must he carry, and all that kind of stuff. So it's also very important it actually guides us in a lot of things, because we all want the best for ourselves and for our children. And so that's why you'd want to utilize these tools. They're very useful, very powerful. And when you don't work against the currencies or work against the energies that are provided at a specific time, you are then able to navigate through life much easier or more effectively as well.
And just from what you were touching on in terms of children, I would really also like to suggest and recommend to all parents to get the birth chart of their children done. It will just enlighten you, especially when you find that you're having what you say, a difficult child. It's really good to pull up the charts and actually see what planets are happening, what oppositions are there. There's a lot that actually goes in just to better understand. And I like what you are talking about, Sister Tabisa, when you talk about this is to empower you. We spoke about it a few days, and I just want you to re-speak to people that understanding when are your days or months where things are going to go good for you and when you actually need to sit down and rest. Because I think we always keep in a cycle of going. But how this astrology can help us is to start to align our things of when we need to be doing certain things. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, so that's something else that's also observed within astrology, is that there are times where one or people are supposed to just have a bit of rest, because it's a time when people need to rejuvenate. And so if you are trying to use that time when it's meant maybe for you to heal or for whatever, you'll find that it's a struggle for you. Yes, you might still be able to get the results that you want, but you'll be compromising your health. And so that then you'll notice that you'll see people having a breakdown. They might be having depression. It's because of those things, because you haven't adhered to, look at it this way, because if you are dealing with the law of gravity, you know that there's no way that you're going to go up. You're eventually going to come down. So are these principles that are embedded within astrology. If there are times, because there are times for all of us that we're supposed to slow down, and there will be times that you're supposed to be energetic. And during those times, if you have allowed yourself to rejuvenate and, look within and actually take time to yourself, when that opening happens, you are so agile because you've allowed yourself. But if you did not adhere to that, you'll find that now you are tired at the time where the universe has opened up for you to be agile. You are so tired because you tried to work against the frequencies that were available, and you actually pushed yourself through that, but you will get it right. But the downside to it is that you'll just be compromising your health, because you did not adhere to the downtime that you were provided. And so that's why people need to use those times. There's a cycle throughout the year that people need to know about themselves and what energies are available. And so you can tap into those energies. If now you've been given time to rest, better just use that time. And you'll notice anyway, most of the time, is that the universe will close doors for you so that you actually take the downtime. And that's how you nurture these energies, and so that you are more effective in being able to do what you are being called to do.
No, I love that. I love that, because I think we keep on just going. and getting frustrated with ourselves when things are not coming together, but not knowing it's not your season. So that's when we talk about seasons. Obviously, there are just some seasons where you're supposed to sit down, take stock and reflect. It's not a season for you to start something new, or, get too busy. So just to wrap it up, thank you so much for your time. And this has been so educational. But just my last question before we wrap up, it's just that what are like the daily, weekly, or monthly tools that one can employ with everything you've talked about in terms of astrology? How can now someone, and meditation, please can you speak about meditation? Because a lot of us Black people think it's a white person. Yeah.
Sorry?
A lot of us Black people think it's a white person thing, and nobody can relate to meditation, even know how to do it. So can you please just break how we can incorporate that?
Okay, thank you. Can I just answer that one example that you made previously around parents being frustrated with their kids? I need to address this one as well. You'll find that because of the gap of, they call it the generational gap, people call it, and the Western people call it generational gap, because they don't want for people to know what is happening in the universe that is forcing for this big change. Remember that we, from the 70s, were born and forced and dragged to church. And you'll find that kids of this day, they don't want to be forced to do things that they don't want to do. And so parents will find those children to be disobedient, yet they are not disobedient. Number one, they will have found truths that made or led those kids not want to conform to those Christian rules. And I'm not saying anything about Christianity. It's still something that people can pursue when it suits them, but they must understand that everyone must be free to practice a religion that they want to practice. So when the parents force those kids they box them to Christianity, and they want to think that these kids are disobedient, because I found myself having to speak to some parents to say, they'll say, no, this child is disobedient because, and I'll be saying, there's nothing wrong with this child. There is really nothing wrong. You just need to understand them. And some of them, they would have actually been called into astrology. They've been called into astrology. And because the parents are in Christianity and there's astrology here, according to those parents, those kids are satanic. And so there tends to be that gap of a communication breakdown within the family. Please, parents, please, Mzwensundu, let's not allow that gap, and let's listen to our kids. These are the later generations, and unfortunately, what has been provided to them by their spirit guides, which is also part of who you are as parents, has been deposited to those kids. Let's listen to those kids. They've got something that we were not given when we grew up. It's not a matter of judging or wanting to force them to change directions. Let's give them time, because remember, this current age going forward will be run by these kids. This is their future that we are trying to lead them to. Let them run the way they want to run, because they've been given special gifts that we have been closed to because of the paths that we've gone to and because of our religious background. Let's allow these kids to be themselves. Let's just listen to when they need to. We need to have platforms where our African people can talk about these things that affect us, because it doesn't help trying to make these gaps big about something that even the parents might need to learn at some stage. So it's not a thing of down from top to bottom now. Allow the kids to teach you as well. It's like, for me, I'm having to explain these things to my mom, and they do make sense, and it does do something to her. Whether she will be at a point of being enlightened as late as she is in her early 70s, but it does bring something to her. This is not a journey to be taken or forced to be going the other way. Let's just enhance and nurture these kids so that they can grow in their spiritual lives. Let's go back to meditation. Meditation, yes, it's not something that I think a lot of people now do know about it, but they know about it, but it's difficult for them to practice, because there's still a tendency within our people to want to look outside. And if not all the truth, is within. You can still do phahla, ndiyaphahla nam. I speak to abadala, abadala, because they are still my ancestral spirits. I speak to animals. I would see sometimes, because I think there's a white bird, a falcon, I think. That bird, when it passes, I now know there's a message that my spirit guides are giving me. Obviously, you'll see how many are there or whatever. Those birds, they are part of the environment. Trees are part of the environment. They are also part of our, there's also a message there for us. That's why you'd hear people saying, we must go out and maybe for hiking, go into the environment, esigangeni, we must speak to our ancestors, in the beaches. Those things we still need to do. You can go there and meditate. You can do meditation in your house. So there are places where people can start with meditation. It can be something like a YouTube video that will teach you how to meditate properly. You will start off by breathing, sitting in a quiet place. Sometimes you can do meditation with meditation music that's high vibrational, so that it can activate your pineal gland, that is your third eye or first eye, depending how you call it. Some people call it first eye. Most people call it third eye, but it depends. Depends what hierarchy it is for you. But it's that activates, and it's that which forms a portal for our spirit guides to be able to speak to us. They'll speak to us about everything. They speak to us about our personal lives. Believe me, they speak to us about this current thing that is happening in our world now that we are still in. So it is a form of a communication. I don't want to say communication tool, but it is a form of connecting to your ancestors. And so meditation is vital. If you can skip a day, it's still acceptable. If you want to skip 3 days, 5 days, but just incorporate that as part of spirituality. I also started meditation when I was still a Christian. So it's not a thing of saying, no, this thing doesn't fall within my religion. Sorry. It's something that we just have to do. And that is the only way you know some of these things that they talk about. You know for yourself, because it will be communicated in your solar plexus. You'll feel it there. You'll also feel it in your heart that it does resonate with you. Let's just get into this meditation. Sorry. There are YouTube channels out there. If you Google, you can even Google anything from 400 megahertz. It will give you, just type in your Google. That's one of the tools that I use a lot. Google, I know people will say, but Google will have incorrect information. They can't be having incorrect information when different people are giving a content about the same thing and talk about the same thing. So please use Google. Yeah, I think in terms of how you meditate, you'll find it there. I cannot use so much of your time, but when people do need help, they can always write messages. I can send them clips of which content can help them. I can send them clips of which channels they can follow to be able to understand these different ways of meditation. And so it's also important, I need to mention this. It's important to look at patterns, and that you can only follow by journaling your important events. You do that on a daily basis. You'll also pick up certain patterns when you do start journaling. You'll pick up certain patterns that you never even knew existed within your life. That why is it that every time I was doing one, I think yesterday or day before, about my life every 10 years, and I discovered that how every 10 years, like if I was born in this year, 10 years later, there's something else that started in my life. 10 years later, I then had something else, maybe a baby or tertiary. Then 10 years later, I then had my hand. I mean, these things for me, how I understand everything in existence is according to patterns. Because, I mean, sometimes this is just a message that's dropped. Or maybe sometimes I've got too much downloads that I would even follow, because some people say, but you're thinking about everything. I'm like, I'm not thinking. It's my attention is being drawn to this. So when I'm asked to do this, I will sit down and just jot, because that's what I've been asked to draw attention to. And then when I do then evaluate what is it that I've been shown, I'll then pick up a pattern. I'm like, wow, it's something that I wouldn't have known. But anyway, journaling is important because we notice certain things that on certain days, certain things happen. Like for me, you'll notice that on a daily basis, I keep a numerology, what makes up the day. Like today is the 25th of the 8th month, 2021. So there's the 25, which is the number 7. Maybe is it a 25 today? Yeah, 25 is the number
25
7
today.
of the 8th of the 5. And then I also do a yearly thing. I add all of those numbers up, and then I understand what is the number that is operating. And you also deal with things like your universal year, which also governs the year, the theme of the year. And so it's something that we can discuss at another time. And then
Yes.
it's very
important.
Just
to say about the journaling, just to share my experience also with the journaling. So what I do is that, which is quite useful also for all feminine predominant energy. So if you are presenting in the avatar of a female body, you are ruled and governed by the moon, therefore you have like a menstrual cycle. So I actually then follow the moon quite closely. So I have an app, and then every day when I journal, I'll see, okay, the moon is in Aries today. This was my day. And I started seeing patterns, like every time the moon is in Pisces is a very good time for me, and I'm very energized. But also in my birth chart, I'm a Pisces moon, so it goes quite well. So you get to understand patterns about yourself. Like I know when it gets to the Aries moon, when the moon is in Aries, I am flat out, like I don't have any energy. So that's what it can do in terms of the journaling and actually being aware of what's happening. So how you can also just start maybe on just the new moon and the full moon, and then observe how you feel, then in journal that. Then from there on, really start incorporating it more of a daily thing to see when do you become a little bit off, even when it's change of season, also monitor that when the season changes, how do you feel? Because normally you can have a dip or you can have a high. So that's what tracking the planet's patterns actually means.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, that's exactly that. And because it makes you to understand that, for example, if it's a day that's got a 4, is that I wouldn't want to do anything that's going to make me interact with people. Like when I'm saying a 4, it could be taking the day, the month, and the year. And if I add all of those numbers up, it's a number 4. And I know that let me deal with myself in my corner. And that's generally that's around Cancerian energies. And so those are the things that we need to just keep in mind. And so that's why when you journal, you'll know, without even you digging down into that, you'll notice that on certain days, similar, maybe you had a rejection on this, and because it also advises, if you want to sign a contract, it doesn't matter what contract, whether it's business or for work, then on certain days it's not going to work out. And if you have an interview on those days which are good for you, then you've got high potential. There's also times when even career-wise or business-wise, there's an opening. For every person, when their season opens up, it's meant to just be for you. When now it's a Virgo time, because we started opening, there was an opening on the 23rd. So Virgos will be given a gift around this time, because especially around new moon, because it's meant to do exactly that. So those are the things that we talk about. And you find that even though your new moon is on a certain time, 6 months down the line, it won't be your moon or your sun sign, but it will be a full moon. Yes, it will be 6 months down the line, you'll find out that you have another opportunity to make it big. So you were looking for something from the universe, and maybe the doors seem closed, but just hang on and don't panic, because it does happen that one will panic and try to force or lose hope. Just know when those gaps open up for you to make it. And it's not only 2 times a year. I'm just trying to make a summary of a thing to say there are times things will just work out for you. There are times for you to just go within. When you go within, you need to understand what is the purpose of that time. That's when you need to almost like read a book or read yourself. I think the best book you can do is actually yourself. Yes. And that you will through meditation, you get your you time, you go sunbathing, you go everything that you can do. You cleanse yourself, you do chakra work, you do all that kind of stuff. And that there's nothing un-African about that. If you read Kemet books, you find out those are the things that we do. They've made it to look like it's a Western thing. There's nothing Western about it. We all relate to the universe in the same way. Universe doesn't see color. Let's be honest about it. So let's do what we're supposed to do, and we'll see how life treats us, because then we'll be able to work with it in the way that is expected. And one other thing that I need to mention, sorry, when we are trying to do this meditation and you're trying to get something from the universe, just make sure your intention is clear. Because when you put your intention, when you put your intention, you almost like stamp it with an emotion. And that's what the universe picks up. And then it will bring that. It's the same thing that the witches do, by the way. They use the same principles. Don't think that this is a thing for us who want to be from the light or whatever. Even witches understand this. So let's use what the universe understands, because these are all the codes. I mean, if you look at numerology, is known to be the fingerprint of God. So there is no way you're going to try and manipulate numerology and it will work for you. Just work with what's there, and the universe will take care of it.
I love it. I love that. I love that so much, because I think intention is everything. You know, instead of focusing on too much things that are external, being able to be very clear about your intention is what actually makes it come quicker to you. And that's why people be like, oh, but I've been manifesting for 6 months, nothing is happening, because you don't believe what you are saying. Because you only attract what you think you deserve. So therefore, that's why doing self-work, self-love is so important about everything else. Because once you can tap into yourself and fully believing in yourself, and that's why even the Bible talks about have faith like a mustard seed. A mustard seed is so tiny that is enough to move mountains. And that's what your intention is. If you're so clear and focused with your intention about what you're doing, what you want, it comes quicker.
It will. It definitely does. That's why I will always say, if you know it works with witches, who are not sometimes not using medicine, they use the heart. They keep you in their heart, and what they wish, it will happen. And so if you can use that for ourselves, it can work.
Yes, because also the polarity of darkness and light, we're always feeling a darkness overpowers. No, it's a balance. So if the dark can be able to infiltrate, the light can also infiltrate. We just have to be clear. Because it's also...
You need to be clear, and you need to make that circle bigger, the light circle bigger, and then it will outweigh the dark piece.
Yes. And also always remember that it's easy to have and to fall into a dark emotion, because that's dense, like anger, jealousy, envy, all of that is dense emotion. So you want to move away from that dense emotion and vibrate higher. That's what they mean about vibrate higher, is that feel lighter, because from that lightness, you are so much closer to God. So we always need to be mindful of everything. But thank you so much for...
And away from the TV, I need to mention that.
The program, please, stay away.
Please.
Only watch our sessions on YouTube.
Yes. No. Please do try your best to stay away, because that does lessen your vibration. Just besides the point that obviously the frequencies that come of it, the news, negative news, they do impact us. So please just when you find time, just go for meditation. You'll get better results, because that TV just brings lots of fear and it's not helpful.
Okay. So we can end, what are the platforms that people can find you in? We will share your posters on our page for them to be able to, but if you can just tell everybody who might not get to the page, how can people find you? What platforms are you on, and how do they go about reaching you?
Okay. There is a WhatsApp. There's also an email. I think because of my trying to stay away from TV and social media, there is a need for me to be in the, you know, I don't know, Twitter, whatever, but I'm not there currently. So it's an effort that I need to make. I should be able to do that before end of this week. And so people will be able to, I think we'll be able to share that by the time we start that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us and making the time. So we've got actually something quite exciting. So this session is going to be pre-recorded by the time that you watch this. But we actually are going to have Sister Lisa back on in probably a week or two for you to be able to get onto the platform and ask questions. So everything that you spoke about today in terms of numerology, birth charts, astrology, how to work the different times in your life. If you have any questions on this, please look out for our poster of when we will say it's going to be on a Sunday at 10 a.m. It will be communicated on our pages of when that day will be. And if you can join us on that day, and then you can have her live answering your questions. If you can't make it live on the day, you can just DM us at Ikhambi Natural Healing on Instagram with your questions, and we'll read out the questions to her for her to answer. So please, guys, keep the questions general, because she won't be able to do a full thing. You can't say, oh, I'm a Sagittarius sun, what does that mean for me? She needs to see like a lot of detail about you, but if you can maybe make it a bit general, or anything else that came up from the session of how to get started. She is been very generous to give us more of her time, which I'm so excited for. So yes, so thank you everybody so much for joining. Please follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, we are on YouTube, we're also on Instagram. We are at Ikhambi Natural Healing. If you want to drop us an email, please also do that. It's admin@ikhambinaturalhealing.co.za. So if you want to send us an email, pop that through, and I'll see you in the next session, which will probably be a live. Looking forward to having everybody there. Love and light. May you all stay well. Bye.
Thank you. Love and light.